Now, on to a very interesting and very relevant discussion now. And by now, many of us have either heard of, know of, or have family members, or perhaps we ourselves have lost our livelihoods and homes because of the economic effects of the coronavirus. And many single families have had to move back with parents or other relatives, sometimes in more remote areas. And there are also forecasts suggesting that the raft of job losses in South Africa could extend to a further 4 million jobs lost in 2021, meaning that shared living is likely to become the only option for many South Africans. So to talk to us about this little more, this rise in trend of shared living, we're joined by Clifford Oosthuizen, who's Managing Director of Westbrook Real Estate. Clifford, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Morning, Sakina. Thanks for having me on your show.
So obviously, as I stated there in the introduction, many of us have either seen or we've been through this. It is very much a reality of our times. So please talk to us about the rise of multi-generational living or shared living, because this, in fact, was the norm if you go back into much of human history. And it seems coronavirus has once again forced us back into living like this.
Sakina, I agree. Multi-generational estate is where two adult generations stay in one or more of our villages in a estate. At Westbrook, we have such an estate where at the moment, if you look at it now, that our grandchildren, they actually have an experience that their parents did not have. A multi-generational estate, that restores the bond between families. It also provides us accommodation to fulfill the needs of all generations.
Now, what also seems to be the norm is that people are selling their expensive homes in the suburbs, and their retired parents are also selling their homes, and they are choosing to buy properties, often smaller, perhaps in the same complex or estate, as you've mentioned, that they can be closer to one another. Are we perhaps seeing a decline of the standalone homes in the near future?
Sakina, if we look at the past pandemics and our current COVID-19 leaving a mark on our society, I'm not an economist and I'm not an expert in this field. But if I have to talk from the heart, we as developers, we have to be resilient, and we have to bounce back, and we have to move forward, and we have to be creative. We cannot forget the basic fundamentals of a developer, which must and which will remain. Those fundamental basics, the principles that we have, is to create beautiful homes, to have a rich community support, to provide safety and security, and to have the latest technology available. And also, very important nowadays is to look after the environment. But again, it's all about also cost saving.
And in your line of work, Clifford, have you come across the fact that more people are choosing to do this? And if so, what are the reasons that they are giving, economic or otherwise, for doing this?
Well, Sakina, like I said, is the building a safe environment and whole, and to actually have the neighborhood feeling together. It's a sense of belonging. It's the ability to create and exercise a better quality of life. With the pandemic that was on our hands, the emotional well-being and the mental health of our residents has become quite an important issue.
And speaking of emotional well-being, we find that often grandparents or parents, they want their space when the children have, flown the nest. And they often want to live a quieter lifestyle. But given the dire economic situation, we find that many young people are moving back in with their parents. So this multi-generational living setup, is it really the most ideal solution moving forward, or are there other options?
Well, it's an interesting fact that millennials, they actually comprise a third of the driving force behind what we call the stay-at-home trend, in a multi-generational estate. Because of, sadly, what we know, that crime has risen. Crime has just shot through the roofs. It's not ideal at the moment, as you just mentioned, the older generation. It's not the ideal scenario for them to stay alone. They all got to move to a safe state, to a safe environment, so that where everybody can work together, play together, and live together.
And of course, because of these adverse economic situations, many people, Clifford, may perhaps be looking and be desperately looking to sell their properties. Is it still a buyer's market? What exactly are the home buyers in for at this point?
Well, fortunately, with the interest rate that has dropped to the current 7% level, it is at the moment, it is an easy, and it's more, sales is actually still doing well for us. Like what we said before is that a developer must be resilient. He must design space. He must design a place where the residents can walk, can run, they can feel safe, they can breathe fresh air. We at Westbrook, we have 128 hectares of land, of which we only building on 80 hectares of land. So that's an important issue. It's another important issue is location. Where are you placed? Where is your development being placed? What happens there in the surrounding areas? The trend is that people want to know that they can go into a lockup and go, have a lockup and go home. Again, coming back to what I said earlier before, the environment is quite important for us. We at Westbrook have done a search and rescue on all our indigenous plants on site, and we've created a nursery, and we've actually rescued 70,000 plants, which we've actually put back into that, and we are continually planting trees, all indigenous. But again, at the end of the day, when a buyer looks at us, he looks at affordability, he looks at value for money.
So to that point, as you say, cost is obviously a factor. What about those who are unable to buy at the high end?
Well, I experience that on a daily basis, where current residents or potential buyers come to ourselves, and then we actually look at it and say to us, okay, we need to do renovations, we need to change the way of the traditional home has been designed. So there's a need for office space. At the moment, there's homeschooling. So all of that takes into account. So again, us as a developer creating a multi-generational estate, which can be an apartment, or it can be townhouses, or it can be freestanding units. It will have to cater from a one-bedroom to a 4 or 5 bedroom unit. So it is important for us to hear and listen to our potential buyers.
And, that also speaks to some of the challenges. But moreover, if you consider sharing homes and the scenario that you've just sketched for us, and transforming traditional urban life to embrace a shift to multi-generational living, what are some of the other challenges that you foresee moving ahead, Clifford?
Well, I don't see anything as a challenge. I see actually it as an opportunity. Whatever is out there, whatever happens, it will come back, the norm will come back. Again, as I said in the beginning, I'm not an economist, I'm not an expert. We will tackle the challenges as they come. There's a lot of other little issues, but those are all issues that we as developers have got to handle.
Well, Clifford Oosthuizen, thanks so much for your time. Clifford is from Westbrook and talking to us about the rise in multi-generational households. This, as many people are cutting costs, moving back in with parents or grandparents in shared living spaces, and also looking at some of the challenges. As Clifford says, he sees it as an opportunity, but there often are some challenges that arise for those who have to share that space as well. Interesting times that we are living in, but also, as pointed out earlier, almost forcing us back to where we were. And it reminds me of a piece that I was reading, an interview that was conducted by the guy who built Dubai. And he was saying that, he was going through cars, the car he drove, the car his father drove, the car his son drives, and going through the generations. And he was basically saying that perhaps his great-grandson or the generation after that will go back to camels. Because, it seems as though we're not learning and we're doing things in reverse. So we'll be forced to go back to where we were. And this reminded me of something like that. All right, let's take a look at our quiz.